Yo, what's good, YouTube? This is Jay from TNJ, and I just wanted to use this episode to just recap Season 4, and this was one to remember, so hit that like button. And we came off of a great season and followed it up with a conference championship and then an OT thriller in the Rose Bowl. What a year to remember. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for that one loss versus UCLA, we probably would have been in the national championship because we were undefeated and we were pretty much on a roll. And that just led to, that one loss led to us being in the conference championship still, but not where we wanted to be. But I think we exceeded expectations. We definitely didn't expect to win the conference right away. We used new sliders. Let's just go over this season as a whole. So we don't really have too many seniors graduating, so a lot of this team is going to look the same next year with a little bit of wrinkles coming into the offseason. We're probably going to lose both coordinators, so our offense is definitely going to look different play calling, different plays, all of that. And our defense will probably be the same. We'll have a new defensive coordinator, but honestly, we'll be running the same 3-4 that I like to run, and it will be a lot of the same. I'd say we have a couple of new guys. Isaac Tagia is graduating. He is the lone senior really that we're really going to miss, and we're going to need to replace him. So let's look at some bowl results, starting with the national championship. And Auburn took care of business as they went undefeated 14-0, defeating Virginia Tech, as Virginia Tech actually had the Heisman Trophy winner in Hooker here. He went 13 for 30 in the game, 43% completion percentage. And wow, he had an off game, 1 interception, 2 touchdowns, and the running back Wheatley ran for 67. But on Auburn's side, they didn't do too well throwing the ball either. 1 touchdown, 1 interception from their quarterback Sandberg. And but they ended up winning this game. And let's just look at the rushing. Joyner ran for 131 yards. Whitlow ran for 78. So they were just pounding the ball on the ground. I don't really know how this matchup actually happened. Ohio State versus Tulane in the Orange Bowl. I have no idea how Tulane made it to the Orange Bowl, but they got blown out 51-10. Exactly what should have happened. I'm surprised that the game allowed this to happen. Tate Martell had 315 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. And Gill ran for 150 yards on 25 carries. They just destroyed them. And look at Bailey. Bailey caught 216 yards, 9 receptions, and a touchdown. They destroyed them. Now, this was a game that I was actually pretty excited about. I wanted to watch it myself. Appalachian State actually beat down Georgia pretty good, 41-21. So Appalachian State might be better than what we thought. They lost to Iowa, and that's who we just played, but they ended up breaking down Georgia. You see Fields threw 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for Georgia, and White ran for 88 yards. But looking at Appalachian State, their quarterback Thomas threw for 280, 3 touchdowns, and then their running back ran for 116. So a couple more bowls I want to cover. Florida ended up beating Michigan State in the Capital One Bowl by 2 touchdowns. Alabama lost to Michigan. And if you guys know NCAA football, Alabama kind of has that type of season right around season 4, season 5, where they just drop off the map and they just don't win anymore. Maybe that's the start of this as Michigan beats them by 3. And then Texas and Notre Dame play in the Fiesta Bowl, and Notre Dame takes down Texas by 7. So I do want to break down some of these award winners that we had, starting with Andre Armstead winning the Bednarik Award, and he had a great season. 55 tackles, 21 tackles for loss, and then also 12 sacks to add to that, an interception, and also a pass deflection and a forced fumble. That's a pretty good season. And he ended up winning that Nagurski, but Isaac Tagia actually ended up running up for that, and he had 72 tackles, so he actually had more tackles than Andre Armstead. 12 tackles for loss, only 2 sacks, and 3 interceptions, so he had a pretty good year at middle linebacker as a senior. Andre Armstead also took home the Nagurski as well. So that's he's pretty much doing a clean sweep here. And then the next award that I believe he actually won was the best linebacker. Just going through all the awards here, he ended up winning best linebacker, and all three of our guys ended up being 1, 2, and 3. What are the chances of that? And I was actually surprised to not see for the Thorpe. I was surprised not to see not James Will Smith, but Andrew Jordan here as well, because he had that 6 interception season, and he was actually first team All-American. We're going to take a look at the All-Americans next, and then Jamal Taylor won the best returner. So let's look at the NCAA all-first team, and none of our guys on offense. I mean, we had no guys at all on offense that really performed that well. But on defense is where we shine. Andre Armstead, obviously. Isaac Tagia, obviously, as well. But then Andrew Jordan wins the first team cornerback. He wins the second slot there as he had 6 interceptions. I think that was second in the NCAA. And let's see the first guy that he compares to here. He had 7 interceptions. So, yeah, I guess that makes sense. 6 interceptions to 7. And Andrew Jordan actually didn't have a ton of tackles. He had 36. Didn't even have a ton of pass deflection with 2. He was just locking guys up the entire season. And he just had himself an amazing freshman season as James Will Smith, no doubt, grabs this All-American award. 72 tackles. 10 tackles for loss and 3 sacks on the year. I mean, he just had a great season, 3 interceptions as well, and 4 pass deflections. Nobody on offense on the second team All-Americans, but Terrence Miller and Michael Cummings get second team on defense. 9 sacks for Terrence Miller on the season, 24 tackles, 10 for loss. He had a good year. He had a forced fumble as well. And then Michael Cummings had 67 tackles, 6 sacks, and an interception, a pass deflection, and a forced fumble as well. So I just want to look at the rankings as far as where our guys slotted compared to the rest of the NCAA. Drayvon Jennings actually was 3rd in passing in the entire nation. So that's pretty good coming into his junior season. Denzel Knox barely misses 1,000 yards rushing, 927. And you see Salah Hutton, who won the Heisman last year, ran for 2,400 this year, and he was about 300 yards short of what his total was last year. Raheem Akusi actually was in the middle of the pack in the receiving totals as he finished the season with 941, which slots him at 43. The tackle leaders, this is so easy to dominate, especially having a user-controlled team. Usually this is how it looks. We have the top total tacklers in the nation. And then looking at sacks, Andre Armstead is number 1. He leads the nation in sacks with 12. I'm surprised that nobody else had above at least 11. But Andre Armstead leads the nation in sacks, and that's probably why he won the award for the best linebacker and the Thorpe Award. So, and then looking at the interception leaders here, Andrew Jordan actually did finish 3 behind the leader, Morton from Oklahoma State, but he finished with 6 in his freshman year. So let's look at the totals for our team. Drayvon Jennings threw for 3,600 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions on 67 completion percentage. I think he had a pretty good year. I think that, at times he was rattled, but he actually threw for 4 less touchdowns than last year, and I can attribute that a lot to the running game this year. We had a lot better blocking up front, so we got to run the ball a little better. And looking at, I honestly want to just highlight Matt McDonald. He's a senior as well, so we do need to kind of think about who's going to be our backup quarterback come next year. Ray Reed, but then we have Josh Talevsky, who we did recruit as well. So we'll see. He'll probably get redshirted. I don't want to use that year of eligibility, but we'll see what happens with Drayvon Jennings. I'm going to probably carry 2 or 3 healthy ones and going to redshirt Talevsky. So let's look at the running backs here. Denzel Knox almost ran for 1,000. I just highlighted that. He had 20 touchdowns, 4.2 yards per carry. But Jay Taylor ran for 500 yards. He had a pretty good season as the backup role. And Drayvon Jennings ran for 176. And a couple of receivers here had a couple of yards as well. Trey White, remember he played last year at cornerback and lost his spot. So he got a couple of carries as well. Receiver was interesting. This was a really interesting year. Raheem Akusi was in the slot. He led the team in touchdowns and in yards. He had 6 touchdowns to 941 yards. He had 63 receptions as well. He led our team in every category receiving wise. But then looking at Junior Fioka, who I thought was going to struggle in his first season as a starting tight end, he actually had a pretty good year. I was pretty surprised at that. Jay Taylor is 3rd in receiving out of the backfield, and Denzel Knox is 4th in reception. So I guess that's a kind of a testament to what kind of offense we were running this year. I mean, a lot of dump-off passes to running backs. They did a lot after the catch. As we move to Matt Pollard, who had 521 yards receiving. And I think that it's time for him to move to tight end. I think that he needs to add a little bit to his frame, but he's 6'5", 227, maybe just a little more weight to him, and he needs to work on his run blocking. I think he's ready for that conversion over to tight end. Carl Wolf in that 4th receiver role, he had 431 yards as well. And then Mark Harrell, the freshman, one of the walk-ons, he barely did anything, but he did a couple of things as he got some yardage. So looking at blocking, we actually had our first season where we had a couple of pancake blocks. I think the game doesn't record this right, but it looks like Junior Fioka had 5. And looking at the sack totals, Joe Johnson gave up 10 sacks, which is way more than he had last year. But, man, I'm going to miss Dante Bull. This is going to be the one guy on the line that, you know, honestly, he pretty much carried the line. 99 awareness, 95 strength. That should say enough right there. But looking at some of our other offensive linemen, had a pretty good season. Isaac Duenas only gave up 3 sacks. Max Barth gave up 2. And then Noah Ballesteros only gave up 1. So that's a pretty good offensive line. And that's why we were able to win a lot of games. So defense is loaded here. And Isaac Tagia is going to be the man that's leaving us. Led our team in tackles, 76, 72 total tackles, and 2 sacks. He's going to be severely missed. And James Will Smith from the safety position had 75 tackles. That's a pretty good season, if you ask me. Michael Cummings coming into his junior season, he had a pretty good year, 6 sacks, and Andre Armstead, we all know the season that he had. Marcus Daniels was kind of the overshadow guy. He didn't put up the big stats, but he was just always in the right place at the right time. He didn't have any sacks and no interceptions. He was just swarming around the ball. He was always just there. Parker Gass in the slot, in the nickel slot, he had 3.5 sacks on those cornerback blitzes. He didn't have an interception. I was surprised to see that, as Andrew Jordan had 6 himself. So let's look at the sack leaders here now. Let's just look at Terrence Miller. He had 9. Jamar Hardy in his senior season, he had 6 sacks. We're going to have to replace him at right end. So really, Jamar Hardy and Isaac Tagia are the 2 guys that we're going to need to replace on the defense. But on the offense, not a lot of movement, but a lot of position changes probably will happen. Then looking at our interception leaders, Andrew Jordan had 6. Josh Hemphill quietly had 5 interceptions on the year. He had a pretty good season on the left side. James Will Smith had 3. Isaac Tagia had 3. So we forced a lot of turnovers, more than we ever have in the interception department. So I want to wrap up this video just talking about recruiting. Right now we have the 29th ranked class in the nation. You see our top players here. We have Spencer Davis, Champagne Green is our number 1 recruit, Jordan Armstead. So we have 3 great receivers right there. And I don't know if they're actually going to play next year. I would love to redshirt them and then have all 3 start as true freshmen or as redshirt freshmen come 2 years from now, because remember, Jamal Taylor's going to be a senior this coming year. Matt Pollard is switching over to tight end. Raheem Akusi is going to be a junior. I mean, we have a lot of aging guys. Carl Wolf is going to be going into his senior year. I mean, everybody's going to be changing on the offensive side of the ball. So we definitely need to replace those guys. But we have a good recruiting class. Then looking at our remaining recruits, Xander Okafor is the one guy that we really want. Jarrett Kennedy we're in first for, but I like Okafor because we do need some depth at the offensive line, and I think that, you know, we have a lot of juniors going into their senior years on the offensive line. We're going to need some depth there and some future. Honestly, we got to keep that offensive line strong, so he's the one guy we're going to go after in the offseason. So that shifts the focus over to, like, who are we going to put points on? So just looking at all prospects here, Chris Oliver is definitely a target, and I want to see what he's like when I unlock some of their attributes and just see how good they are. He's 70% locked, but if we put enough points on him, we can possibly steal him because we're 3,000 away. Remember, you get 10,000 in the offseason to distribute, and all of these guys that have interest, I'm going to see which one I want to get, which I'm probably going to go after 2, and I'm just going to go all in on them because our recruiting class right now is pretty good. And then I expect to have a few walk-ons as well that do commit. So, like, a lot of these quarterbacks want to come to our school. I'm pretty sure they're going to walk on, and we'll see how good they are. And I want to see how I'm going to divvy up those points. So I do have one coaching upgrade. I am going to do the letter of intent here, that, we get 1,500 extra points right now, and we're going to boost that up to 3,000 extra points and a 20% chance that we steal a prospect from their top school. So that's a pretty good perk right there, and I like that a lot. And I normally don't like to put, a lot of coaching upgrades on, just because it gives you a competitive advantage over a lot of CPU teams, and it makes it a lot easier to rebuild. But I am going to add that offseason one. I don't think I'm going to put too many on the actual gameplay, those game upgrades, but just the recruiting maybe just helped me out there a little bit. So that's really going to do it for this episode. You don't want to miss the offseason, because I have a new wrinkle I'm adding to the offseason, and it's pretty cool, and it's going to turn a couple of heads a little bit, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely something that I've never done before, but it is realistic, and I'm mimicking real life. So you guys don't want to miss that. It's pretty good. But that's going to do it for this episode. I just want to do a recap of Season 4 as we head into Season 5. So hit subscribe, hit that like button. Let's go San Jose State. I mean, we have a lot to build on. We have a lot of returners. So we're going to be right there next year. So stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.